To Newsbreak. We're broadcasting live from the We Believe Digital Broadcast Studios out of Jackson, Mississippi, right here in the heart of the deep, deep South. It's Friday evening. Everybody is ready for a weekend. We've had extreme heat all week long, and God blessed us with a spring shower just a few minutes ago to quiet down the dust and clean the atmosphere, and we're grateful for that. I want to send a shout out to my sister Ethel in Sacramento, California, who just got back home after a week stay at the homeland where there was a pilgrimage of all of my relatives back into the state of Mississippi. You know, we had the pleasure of going to the cemetery where most of your lineage and your history can be discovered. And we were fortunate to go back to the grave sites of my great-great-great-grandmother, born in 1839, and walked our way forward all the way down to little old me. This is Newsbreak. We're broadcasting live. We're seen on Facebook, on YouTube, on Roku TV, and our very own platform, WeBelieveDigital.com. You can call in and join us in the conversation in this dialogue if you'll dial 800-492-5186. As always, I'm grateful to have my co-host in the studio with me, Chris Young. Chris, how have you been?
Doing just fine, Mr. Garrett. Ready for another show.
Doing good?
Yes, sir.
What did you do lunch today?
Did lunch down in downtown Jackson, a place called Martin's Downtown. Good blue plate special on Friday. Fried chicken was beautiful.
They have pretty good food down there.
Yeah, no Texas Pete, but they got Louisiana hot sauce, so I made do with that.
If you ever get down to Mississippi, we have some of the best eating in the world. We have restaurants that have been here since the late 1900s. And so, you know, they are established. I think of Big Apple, a restaurant down on Ferry Street that specializes in smokes and pig ears and things of that nature. You gotta try it. You gotta try it if you ever get down this way. And so we are grateful to have great food here in the South, where many of our families still grow their own. But this is Newsbreak, and so we're gonna move on to some breaking news here. First, let's talk about what's going on in Kentucky. Now, Kentucky is under tremendous strain as we speak. The flooding has just been horrific. Up to 15 lives have been lost, and they're still counting. They've never seen that kind of devastation before with flooding in Kentucky. And Kentucky's not that far from us here in Jackson, Mississippi, and it's really forecasted that the rain will move further south, and Jackson, Mississippi would get some of that rain that has caused so much pain and so much devastation in Kentucky. And Kentucky will get just one day's break before the rain returns again. And so we have to ask ourselves here on Newsbreak, you know, just what is going on with this climate when we see things that we've never seen before. Just last week, we had the same type of devastation going on in St. Louis, Missouri. I have a lot of relatives and family in St. Louis, and I hope and pray that you guys are safe and doing well. They, too, were dealing with catastrophic flooding. And so, Chris, is global warming and climate control issues for real, or what is going on in this country?
Yeah, I don't know what would have to happen before somebody says for sure it's real. In fact, I was watching a program not too long ago, and they were saying that the pace is about 12 or 14 times quicker to get to these thresholds that are just really, really dangerous than it had been predicted. And so every effort that we're making now, and people are making efforts, there's so much more solar going on. There's the push for the electric vehicles is just off the charts. $7,500 incentives for new electric cars, $4,000 for used electric cars. Imagine they've been around long enough now to even have used ones for sale. But yeah, they were behind they were behind in predicting when we were going to hit that threshold. So everything we're doing now counts even more so.
Was it Vice President Al Gore that first sounded the alarm about?
He sure was. Everybody thought he was crazy. They didn't want to listen to him.
And I don't believe President Trump said it was much to global warming.
Yeah, well, I think you're right on the money there.
Yeah. But that's something happened. And
Yes.
and if you get up around the North Pole and you see the ice melting and things of that nature, it has catastrophic consequences to that, especially for cities like New Orleans, who is already below sea level. And, in New Orleans, it's difficult to even bury people there because of the sea level, the low proximity of the land. And so, everybody's got to be buried above ground for the most part. And so with this global warming, and this continues to go in the direction it's going, we could lose major cities.
Yes, it's all possible. It's a scary thought.
Yeah.
I kind of I wear it like a loose garment because it's just, it can, when you really focus in on it, it's a devastating eventuality here if we don't continue on the path that we're on and speed up the pace.
Yeah, and so you were mentioning the electric cars and the things that we're trying to implement to combat this issue, but clearly I don't think we're doing enough. I mean, solar and windmills, things of that nature are just not moving fast enough to combat the damage that we've caused to the atmosphere. And then if we don't do something, and I heard on the news the other day that there was a tremendous spill from debris that had fallen from a rocket back to Earth. And so we're trying and challenging this ecology and this Earth in many, many ways.
There's so much stuff in space. I didn't realize how much, use the word debris, I didn't realize how much stuff was up there.
Yeah.
Not paying attention to that sort of thing. It seems so remote, so out of touch with reality for me going through my life that I never paid much attention. And now you see these TV shows where they're showing these photographs with metal flying in all different directions up there. It's scary.
You could be walking along in an open field and get hit in the top of the head when there wasn't a tree or
just
mountain
like
around.
Right, and you don't even have to be in Jackson to get hit by fallout.
Well, we got to have some levity. We got to laugh at some things, but there are many out here that believe, Chris, that the earth is purging itself, that the pandemic and the monkeypox and the Omicron and the COVID is a way of the earth trying to cleanse itself, not only of things, but of people as well. And so, I don't know what the limits of the population that the earth can handle. You wouldn't happen to know anything along that line, would you?
I would not.
Well, I can tell you, Chris, there are about 3 billion people, maybe more.
Yeah, just north of 3.
Just north of 3 billion people on Earth. So we don't know what she can sustain.
Right.
And so, all kinds of things we better be guarded against here. I know that we're having a great conversation with Chris, but we're going to get to some news. Now, in Jackson, Mississippi, in the state of Mississippi, we have 2 particular events that are causing a great deal of consternation, a great deal of concern in our state and in our city. Now, first, I have to go back to the garbage contract and the issue that it caused with Mr. Richards being recommended by the mayor of Jackson to pick up garbage services in Jackson, Mississippi. After several RFPs, Mr. Richards, an African-American-owned firm, was the low bidder, providing the city with $1.2 million in annual savings over our past provider, Waste Management, who had held a contract for 35 years. The city council, made up of 5 African Americans and 2 Caucasians, voted not to award the contract to Mr. Richards, and our mayor then pushed forward with an emergency declaration and told the provider to go to work. Not long after that, the city council sued the mayor, and then the city council made an open proclamation that even though he may be working, that he will not get paid. And Mr. Richards has been working in the city of Jackson for over 4 months, and he has not been paid. Now, Chris, we live in a city that's 85% African American. How is it possible that we could have this kind of scenario?
I don't understand it. I try to expand my brain to grasp how we could be at this point, and it's just a different when we flip the issue around, and ask yourself this simple question here: Why is the president of the city, the current president of the city council, a white male, and the 3 African American, I tend to call them the trio, they've been in lockstep on this whole thing against the new contract? And so I asked myself, try to get an answer to this question: why are they trying so hard to not have a new trash vendor in this city?
After 35 years with the same vendor.
35 years. And they are just going out of their way to see to it that we do not have a different vendor. And now they've failed, despite their no votes. They failed. We got 4 months with a new vendor. And I don't see any negative work product going on. And I don't hear, every so often it seems like and they almost seem like ginned up stories on the news about, there was a pile of trash here that they missed or something like that. But in the grand scheme of things here, approximately 54,000 households, very, very little complaints. So what would motivate somebody to work so hard to not change the trash vendor? What's the big deal? If you change the vendor that gives you the copy machines down at City Hall, if you change the vendors that provide you other goods and services from time to time, what's the big deal if we change the trash vendor? So that's the question I'm left with, because these gentlemen, these 3 African-American council members and Ashby Foote, they put in a lot of work, a lot of effort into seeing to it that the city do not change the trash vendor.
Well, maybe they have a special relationship with Waste Management.
Yeah, it's not the first time I've heard that. I mean, I don't know that to be true, but when you, through a process of elimination, all I'm left with is, why are you so beholden to the status quo that's costing you $1.2 million a year than Mr. Richards would cost you for the identical service?
And just last week, I believe that was services in the city of Jackson. So you turn down $1.2 million savings for garbage collection, and you increase rates.
Then you ask the customer to dig deeper.
Does that make any sense?
Makes no sense. I understand rates need to vary over time. Of course, that needs to happen. But in the midst of all this, boy, the timing, it's just...
Well, we can't figure it out. We know that, in a city that's 85% black, with black mayor and 5 members out of 7 being African Americans, that an African American firm with the capacity and the capability to do the job that offers you a significant saving should be given every opportunity to perform. I mean, you cannot imagine that a African American firm bid in the city of Madison. And I love Mary Hawkins, the mayor up there, but that council group up there would not hesitate to award the contract for garbage collections to a Caucasian firm that gave them $1.2 million savings. It wouldn't even be a discussion. It would be celebrating. Everybody would be at the country club saying what a great day it is for the city. We got one of our own that's going to do the work, and we're saving $1.2 million, and everybody would be celebrating. But Chris, in Jackson, we're protesting the African-American firm by African-Americans.
It's twisted. The reasonable mind doesn't expect it. I mean, if you know the history here, you know the oppression against African-Americans in this state, and especially against the African-American business community in this state. But to now see African-Americans being the ones that are holding the whip against themselves, this is just painful.
It's self-hatred at its best, and that's about all we can call it, that we just do not like one another enough to go the extra mile. In Louisiana, they have a 10% preference goal for local firms. We got to go to break, and we'll be right back.
The Mississippi Link is an African-American female-owned newspaper with a trusted voice that is highly respected throughout the city, state, and nation. Our motto, keepers of the knowledge for people who speak the truth, since 1993. Link significantly influences the thoughts, attitudes, and buying decisions of its readers. Call us at 601-368-8481 for your advertising needs. If you would like to receive a newspaper in the mail each week, our annual subscription is only $52 per year. That is only $1 per week for you to stay informed regarding many stories that you can only get in the Mississippi Link. Sign up today at themississippiLink.com and click on Home Delivery.
Socrates Garrett ENT.com is a diversified firm specializing in recycled aggregates and crushed concrete. Socrates Garrett ENT.com's recycled materials provide the construction industry with significant economic and environmental benefits by recycling clean concrete rubble into M.Dot grade rock materials. Recycled aggregates and crushed concrete can be applied to driveways, road construction, bank protection, parking lots, general bulk fills, and more. By using Socrates Garrett ENT.com's crushed concrete products, anyone from homeowners to general contractors can help reduce landfilled concrete waste, conserve natural resources, and gain significant economic savings on materials and disposal costs. For more information, please call 601-896-0084 or visit us online at SocratesGarrettENT.com.
Welcome back to Newsbreak. We're broadcasting live from right here in Jackson, Mississippi at the We Believe Digital Broadcast Studio. We're being seen on Facebook, on Roku TV, on YouTube, and our very own platform, WeBelieveDigital.com. You know, shows like this and other great content will be archived and housed here for years to come, where your children and your great-grandchildren one day will be able to come and see what was the topics of conversation going on in 2022 in Mississippi. You know, that'll be an interesting discussion, just as I'm finding it very interesting that we're having the same discussions about troubles in Mississippi that we had 100 years ago. Nothing very much has changed, and we live and work here every day, and our desire and our goal is to make this a better place to live than what we found it. You know, we got to ask ourselves, you know, what is our purpose here on earth? It is to make things better for those that come after us, to correct the ills of the past, and to move forward with a brighter future for everyone. That's the essence of the American dream. But when one group has constantly been mistreated and held back for hundreds and hundreds of years, and you find the same thing occurring today that was happening 100 years ago, then you got to ask yourself, where did we go wrong? What did we do that created a scenario that my children's quality of life would be less than the quality of life that I experience today myself? How is that possible? If you're not making progress, then you are in fact dying. And we find that here in Mississippi, there are some tragic things going on, much worse in many ways than was going on 100 years ago. And Chris, I want to talk to you about this $74 to $96 million scandal that we're experiencing here in the state of Mississippi. What's the latest update?
Well, just yesterday at the Neshoba County Fair, our illustrious governor, Tate Reeves, he pushed back. He pushed back on the idea that this United States attorney that he had fired a week before, he pushed back and put it all on that attorney that'd been practicing for a long time and was well liked on both sides of the aisle. But they fired him immediately after he issued a subpoena to the University of Southern Miss Athletic Foundation for communications with that they've had with Phil Bryant or his wife.
Wow. And
boom, so the result of that was you're getting fired. And the Tate Reeves says that, that attorney, Mr., I believe you pronounce it Pigot, was fired because he has a political agenda and he liked media attention. And Reeves also confirmed that the obvious, that what everybody knows already, that the FBI and numerous government agencies are investigating this.
Well, I want you to go back for our viewers that are joining us for the first time and just kind of give us the background on how this all was uncovered and exactly more detail about it.
Sure. Well, every year the federal government allots millions of dollars to all 50 states to provide a safety net, if you will, for the very least among us. And under this program that's run out of the Office of Child Assistance in D.C. under Health and Human Services is a program called TANF, TANF, Temporary Assistance for Needy Families. And they give all states money. It's just Mississippi, but what Mississippi did, and the unfortunate part is there's no accountability back to the federal government. And so once the unsavory, dishonorable folks in Mississippi decided, well, if I don't have to give any accountability for these millions of dollars, I'll go ahead and turn this into my own slush fund. And that's what they did. And we're talking about a minimum of $74 million. But I also saw a different report this morning with a number as high as $97 million. So, they found somebody to set up various agencies under the Department of Human Services, under the auspices that they would be helping the neediest among us, very, very poor families, families that are not 138% or the typical poverty level, but 200+% below the established poverty level, and they stole that money from them. They paid for rehab for different people. There's connections to Super Talk radio executives. There's a $8 million volleyball stadium down at the University of Southern Miss, which apparently is an area where some reporting indicates that Governor Reeves got a lot of his political contributions from that Hattiesburg area. And some people say could have been up to 14% of contributions and really helped him, to get in the seat there. But his predecessor is the one that's now in the crosshairs, the former governor, Phil Bryant. And he's now been subpoenaed directly by by the attorney for the lady by the name of Nancy New, who created these different community organizations, Families First, Mississippi Education Center, et cetera, different, but they weren't helping needy people. And if they ever did, it was at a minuscule level, but they sucked millions of dollars out to pay for new automobiles, telephone bills, rehab stints for people, investing in pharmaceutical companies. It just a complete, lack of regard, lack of basic human regard for the people that this money was intended to go for.
Wow. And our state continues to decline to expand Medicaid inside of Mississippi. And Chris, I believe you said to me that if for every $1 that Mississippi spends, that the federal government would match it with over $3 in return.
$3.34.
$3.34. And our state refuses to expand Medicaid. And yes, we're the most unhealthy, the most obese state in the country. Can you help our viewers understand how that's possible?
I pour over the information and trying to get an understanding of this, because I look at myself like still, new, 17 months down here now. Of course, I studied Mississippi long before I came here, but to try to make sense of this behavior, I mean, it appears that the white conservative majority legislators have a double-edged sword of hatred. Not only a hatred for African American advancement of any kind, but also for poor people. They seem to have the opinion that I guess they're taking the opinion, well, I got to where I'm at, so they can get to where they're at. Just totally a narrow-minded, ignorant type thinking, and so that's all I come up with. I wish I could find a better word than hatred.
Well, we got to deal with these issues because the hypocrisy is just overwhelming.
Yes.
Mississippi is the poorest state, is the number one welfare state in the country. For every dollar that we send to Washington, D.C., we receive greater than $3 back. And we receive those funds, but we won't expand Medicaid because of the fact that it was called Obamacare. That's all we can come up with, Obamacare. And Trump and Republicans across this country have denied their citizens the opportunity to live a healthier life just because the ex-president Obama was the champion and got that pushed through by Ted Kennedy before he died to help push through that Americans would have affordable health care throughout this country. And it's a shame, Chris.
And at the end there in the Senate, John McCain, a white Republican, was the final vote.
The final vote, and it'll always go down in history for when he came out of the hospital, I believe.
That's right.
And made his way down to the podium and gave the thumbs down.
A white Republican doing the right thing when all the chips were on the line.
When all of the chips were on the line.
Mm-hmm.
And that just shows you that it can be done.
Can be done, and there are decent, honorable people out there that are not just totally absorbed with themselves and what can, me, what can I get out of this? There's lots of people out there that are in service to others and realize that, love thy neighbor and thy fellow man, and that's part of my purpose here on earth. Like you said, in order to get better, I need to extend my arms to other people and to try to be helpful to them. That's all part of the equation.
Well, we salute the McCain family because that was a tremendously important vote and meant so much to so many Americans. Mm-hmm. And so we have to go back and give credit and acknowledge and remember the courage that it took for him to do that. Courage is something that we don't find a lot of these days. We don't hear anybody that's courageous enough that we've elected to office to stand up and scream and shout about the disparities that are going on in this country. You know, African Americans make up over 40% of the population in the state of Mississippi, and yet we get less than 2% of contracts for goods and services. We get less than 10% of contracts for goods and services out of our municipalities in the state that are controlled by African American elected officials, which is a greater sin. You know, we expect more from people that we put in office to deliver back to the community that sent them. We have to remind them every day that Martin Luther King and Medgar Evers and Vernon Damer all gave their lives that they would have an opportunity to hold these positions. So we ask that if you won't deliver for our people, then don't be afraid to lose the position, because you're going to lose it, because the African American community is hurting, and we need effective leadership that on every account provides opportunity to the constituency that has been historically denied. And that's just not happening. Now, Chris, Mississippi has the highest number of African American elected officials in the state, I believe.
Yes, and overall the highest concentration of African American population of any state in the country.
And yet we have the poorest black business class, the smallest black business class of anywhere in the country.
Right. And you got all these people that are ripping off the federal government and stealing these funds. There's not a black face among any of them. Not one.
So it's hard. You know, it's almost devastating to be born and try to grow a business in the poorest state in the nation if you're white. Think about it, how difficult it would be to be African American and try and grow and sustain a business in a country, in a state where historically there have been no opportunities for African American firms. The banks have redlined the business communities. They don't make loans to the business community. And so it's just tremendously hard. So we salute the team at We Believe Digital Broadcast Studio for bringing this information and making absolutely certain that it stays on the forefront. You know, history is tremendously important. Chris, someone once said, if you don't know your history, you're bound to repeat it.
Doomed to repeat it. Yeah.
You heard that?
Oh, doomed to repeat it, right.
Yeah, and I think there's one ethnic group that has made it personally and perfectly clear that we will not forget.
That's right.
That's our Jewish community.
That's right.
And they will never forget.
They draw hard lines and they stick to them.
They stick to them. Mm-hmm. The Holocaust was a terrible thing, and they stick to it every year. Mm-hmm. African Americans have experienced things as bad.
Right.
And we don't stick to them.
You can't even get the governor to acknowledge Black History Month in Mississippi.
Well, this has been We Believe Digital News Break. You know, we're going to continue these conversations, and we're going to continue the dialogue and bring this kind of content to you each and every day as scheduled. So you can join us at 800-492-5186. Follow us. Share this broadcast with others. Send us some stars. Do all of the things to support. Hit the donate button. We need the funds necessary to dive deeper into what's really going on in the African American community. Now, it's plausible that you will see a lot of non-African American firms begin to talk about the needs of African Americans. And you'll see that in several news networks now that are sprouting up all over the country. Black Information Network, etc., that's run and controlled by Caucasians. But you never will have the freedom to express and talk and demonstrate the truth when you're controlled by those that historically have oppressed you and have a need to keep you down. Donate to us. Support us. Until next time, we want you to stay safe and have a great weekend.